In the quiet mountain village of Elderwood, nestled among ancient pines and morning mist, lived a boy named Elijah, whose pockets were as empty as his dreams were full. When the traveling merchant rolled into the village square with his caravan of wonders, no one expected what would unfold. There, towering beside the merchant's ornate wagon, stood the most magnificent dog anyone had ever seen, a creature of impossible size, silver-white fur gleaming like moonlight on snow, eyes holding wisdom beyond mortal understanding. The villagers gathered, whispering in awe at the beast, surely destined for nobility or wealth. But when young Elijah pushed through the crowd and boldly cried out, "Stop, I want that huge dog," laughter rippled through the gathering. What could a penniless mountain boy offer for such a treasure? Could the strange way the great dog looked at Elijah mean something the others couldn't see? Dawn broke over Elderwood as it always did, first painting the highest pines with gold, then slowly trickling light down into the valley where modest homes huddled against the mountain's embrace. Elijah was already awake, as he was every morning before the rooster's call. His small hands worked deftly, stoking the fire beneath old Mari's copper kettle. "You're restless today, child," Mari observed, her voice weathered like the mountains themselves. She moved slowly, bones creaking with age, yet her eyes remained sharp as she sorted dried herbs with practiced precision. "Had the dream again," Elijah replied, running his thumb along the worn leather of his boots, patched 7 times and still barely holding together. These boots had carried him to Elderwood as a toddler, Mari often said. They were his only possession from before. Mari paused, gnarled fingers hovering over her mortar. "The white creature in the mist, following you through the forest," Elijah nodded, pouring steaming water over herbs. "But different this time. It stood before me, waiting, like it was time for something." Outside, the village awakened. Tradesmen opened their shops, women gathered at the well, and children scampered between cottages. Elijah watched through the window, forever apart from their easy belonging. 12 years in Elderwood, yet still the foundling to most, except to Mari, who discovered him wandering the forest path, speaking words no child his age should know. "Best gather the evening primrose today," Mari said, pressing a small woven basket into his hands. "The north slope has the strongest blooms." Elijah's shoulders slumped. North meant passing the schoolhouse, where Master Finch's lessons carried through open windows, lessons Elijah yearned to attend rather than foraging, while other children learned their letters. "Go on now," Mari urged gently. "We need it for Widow Carson's sleeping draught." Elderwood accepted Mari because they needed her healing, but they merely tolerated Elijah, the strange boy who spoke to animals and sometimes predicted rain before the clouds gathered. Children his age avoided him after their parents whispered warnings. Only the butcher's youngest daughter, Lily, occasionally offered a smile when their paths crossed. As Elijah made his way through the village square, his worn boots leaving faint dusty prints, he kept his eyes lowered. Mayor Holland's son Tristan stuck out his foot, sending Elijah sprawling onto the hard-packed earth. His empty basket rolled away as laughter reproached Tristan and his companions. "Looking for scraps, foundling," Tristan taunted, "or talking to rats again?" Elijah silently retrieved his basket, brushing dirt from his patched trousers. He'd learned years ago that words only fed their cruelty. Instead, he locked eyes with Tristan momentarily, enough to make the larger boy step back uneasily. "He's unnatural," someone muttered. Continuing his journey, Elijah escaped to the northern forest path. Here, surrounded by whispers of wind through leaves and the occasional curious squirrel, he could breathe freely. Animals never found him strange. They approached without fear, sometimes bringing him objects: a uniquely shaped stone, a fallen robin's egg, once even a tarnished coin that bought medicine for Mari's winter cough. Near the primrose patch, Elijah discovered fresh deer tracks. Following them, he found a young doe with her leg trapped between fallen logs. Others would have seen dinner. Elijah saw suffering. Working patiently, he freed the frightened creature, speaking in low, soothing tone. The doe studied him with liquid eyes before bounding away, leaving Elijah with an unexpected sense of emptiness. By mid-afternoon, his basket brimmed with primrose, mushrooms, and wild berries. Heading homeward, he passed Magistrate Thornfeld's imposing stone house, with its iron gates and manicured gardens. The magistrate himself stood conversing with two expensively dressed strangers, their polished boots and golden watch chains broadcasting wealth. "The papers will be signed tomorrow," Thornfeld was saying. "The eastern slopes will be yours to survey." Elijah slowed his pace, something in their exchange setting off warnings in his mind. The mountains were Elderwood's protector, not a resource to be carved away. Back in Mary's cottage, as he helped prepare remedies, something unfamiliar stirred in the air, a tension, an expectancy. When the distant sound of wheels on cobblestones reached them, Elijah's heart quickened inexplicably. "The merchant comes," neighbor Bess called through the open window, "bringing wonders from the southern kingdoms." Mary watched as Elijah's hands trembled slightly, spilling dried lavender. "Perhaps we should see these wonders," she suggested, surprising him. "My old bones could use the excitement." As they joined the villagers streaming toward the square, Elijah couldn't explain the certainty growing within him that whatever awaited in that square had been waiting for him his entire life. The merchant's wagon gleamed with polished brass and exotic woods, painted panels depicting faraway lands and creatures of legend. Thaddeus himself matched his conveyance, tall and imposing, with a magnificent silver beard and robes of burgundy silk embroidered with constellations. His deep voice carried across the village square as he greeted the gathered crowd. "Good people of Elderwood, I am Thaddeus, humble purveyor of wonders from beyond the 7 valleys." He bowed with theatrical flourish. "Treasures and curiosities to delight the eye and enrich the soul." But all eyes were drawn past the merchant to the enormous silver-white creature sitting regally beside the wagon, larger than any dog anyone had seen, with intelligent eyes that seemed to evaluate each villager in turn. A collective gasp rose when the beast stood, its shoulder reaching the height of a man's chest. Magistrate Thornfeld pushed through the crowd, his substantial girth clearing a path. "Magnificent animal, from which royal kennel does it hail?" Thaddeus stroked his beard, producing a leather-bound ledger with strange markings embossed on its cover. "Ah, Kodiak is no ordinary dog. Good sir." He ran his finger down a page covered in elegant script. "Last of his bloodline, descended from the guardian beasts of the northern realms. His ancestors protected kings and sacred sites for centuries." "A price then?" Thornfeld demanded, jingling the coin purse at his belt, meaningfully. The merchant's eyes narrowed slightly. "Kodiak chooses his master, not the reverse, but for one deemed worthy." He paused dramatically. 1,000 gold sovereigns. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Such a sum could buy half the village. Thornfeld scoffed. "Preposterous. No dog is worth." "Not merely a dog," Thaddeus interrupted softly. "A companion, protector, and if legends hold true, a being of considerable gifts. They say his kind can sense danger leagues away and possess wisdom beyond mortal understanding." Elijah pressed forward, drawn irresistibly closer, despite Mary's restraining hand. The great dog's head turned, eyes locking with his. Something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, or some older knowledge. "The foundling fancies himself a dog owner," Tristan called out, triggering laughter. "Perhaps he'll pay with acorns and pine cones." Thaddeus's gaze shifted to Elijah, expression unreadable. "And you, young man, what would you offer for such a companion?" Before Elijah could respond, Thornfeld interjected. "Don't waste your time with the boy. I'll consider your price. Kodiak would make a fitting symbol of my station." He gestured toward his large home. "I have business associates arriving next week who would be most impressed." The merchant's attention remained on Elijah. "Your name, child?" "Elijah, sir," he answered, voice steadier than expected. Thaddeus consulted his ledger again. running a finger down the page with sudden interest. "Curious," he murmured. Then louder, "And you believe yourself worthy of Kodiak's companionship?" Elijah began, but words failed as the massive dog rose and padded toward him. Mary's cottage grew crowded as villagers pressed against windows and doorframes, straining to hear the merchant's pronouncement. Thaddeus sat comfortably at the worn oak table, his ornate ledger open before him while Elijah and Mary occupied the bench opposite. Outside, Kodiak lay sphinx-like, his massive form blocking half the garden path. "3 trials of worthiness," Thaddeus explained, voice rich as mulled wine. "Ancient tests to determine if you are truly meant to be Kodiak's companion." Mary's gnarled fingers clutched her shawl, "And if the boy fails, then Kodiak remains without a companion, and I continue my search." The merchant's ringed finger traced a complex diagram in his ledger. "Or the magistrate purchases him as a common pet, a sad fate for such a creature." Elijah leaned forward. "What must I do?" "First you must retrieve water from the moon mist spring at the mountain's peak, water touched by tomorrow's dawn." Thaddeus produced a crystal vial from his robes. "The spring is guarded by the mountain itself. Many have tried, few return." "That's madness," Mary exclaimed. "Upper reaches are forbidden. Treacherous paths, unpredictable weather, and other dangers less easily named," Thaddeus added calmly. "The second trial requires an echo crystal from the caverns beneath Old Widow's Ridge. The third," he smiled mysterious, "we'll discuss that should you survive the first 2. From the doorway, a disapproving murmur rose. Elder Tobin, keeper of village history, pushed through. "This violates tradition. No one climbs beyond the stone markers. Not since the great storm claimed 7 lives 3 generations past." The 3 ancient stone markers stood at the edge of the permitted lands, weather-worn monuments carved with warnings. Children were taught to fear them from their earliest years. "The boy risks our very covenant with the mountain," Tobin continued. "We respect its boundaries. It protects our village." Thaddeus closed his ledger with a snap. "Perhaps that covenant needs renewal, Elder. Perhaps that's precisely what these trials will achieve." Before anyone could respond, the cottage door burst open. Magistrate Thornfeld entered, ducking his head beneath the low beam, 2 stern-faced men at his heels. "This charade has gone far enough," he declared. "I've consulted with the village council. The boy's attempt threatens our safety and traditions." He produced an official-looking parchment. "As magistrate, I forbid it." Thaddeus appeared unimpressed. "On what grounds?" "Public safety, and the boy is underage. He has no guardian's consent." All eyes turned to Mary, who straightened despite her years. "I found him. I raised him. My consent is given." Thornfeld's face darkened. "You're merely his caretaker, not his legal guardian. The village collectively holds responsibility for orphans." "How convenient," Mary observed dryly. 13 years with no interest in his welfare. And suddenly he's a ward requiring protection. Elijah stood, surprising everyone with his steadiness. "I accept the trials. You have no authority," Thornfeld began. "The boy has spoken," Thaddeus interrupted, "and Kodiak has shown interest. The trials proceed." Thornfeld leaned closer, voice lowered but still audible. "Consider carefully, merchant. My influence extends beyond Elderwood. Your trading permits for the northern regions could face scrutiny." Thaddeus smiled. "Threats, magistrate. How unbecoming." He turned to Elijah. "The first trial begins at dawn. The vial must capture the spring's first light." "He'll never survive the Thais," someone muttered. "That would be convenient for some," Mary replied sharply. As the crowd reluctantly dispersed, Thornfeld lingered. "This obstinance does you no credit, boy. I could make your life comfortable. A position in my household, perhaps." Elijah met his gaze. "I don't seek comfort." "Then what do you seek?" Thornfeld demanded. Elijah glanced toward Kodiak, whose attentive eyes hadn't left him once. "Something I can't explain yet." After Thornfeld departed, Mary busied herself packing provisions. Dried meat, hard cheese, a small loaf. Her hands trembled slightly. "You needn't go," she said quietly. "It's just a dog, however magnificent." Elijah shook his head. "It's more than that. When I look at him, it's like remembering something I've forgotten." Mary paused, studying him. "There are things about your coming to Elderwood I've never told you." "What things?" She hesitated, then reached for a wooden box beneath her bed. From it, she withdrew a small copper amulet on a leather cord. "You were wearing this when I found you. I've kept it hidden, fearing questions I couldn't answer." The amulet bore a symbol, a mountain peak, with what appeared to be a four-legged creature standing guard, strangely similar to the emblem embossed on Thaddeus's ledger. "What does it mean?" Elijah whispered. "I don't know," Mary admitted. "But perhaps these trials will reveal more than just who deserves a dog." She placed the amulet around his neck. "Keep it hidden. Trust no one tomorrow, especially those claiming to help." Darkness shrouded the mountain as Elijah slipped past the village boundaries before dawn. The crystal vial Thaddeus had given him hung securely around his neck alongside Mary's hidden amulet. His breath clouded in the pre-dawn chill as he approached the first stone marker, a weathered monolith twice his height, warning runes barely visible after centuries of mountain storms. "Beyond lies peril," the old inscription read. "Honor the boundary or court doom." Elijah hesitated only briefly before stepping past. The well-worn path immediately deteriorated into a game trail, then vanished entirely among the increasingly dense pines. He oriented himself toward the summit, visible as a slightly darker shape against the star-strewn sky. An hour's climb brought him to the second stone marker, this one fallen and split down the middle by some ancient force. Moss covered half its face, but the warning remained clear: the mountain tests the worthy and devours the proud. As he pressed onward, first light painted the eastern horizon crimson. The trees thinned, replaced by wind-twisted shrubs and loose shale that shifted treacherously underfoot. Twice he nearly lost his footing, saved only by grasping at exposed root. Near a particularly steep section, movement caught his eye, a mountain hare watching him with unusual interest. When their eyes met, the creature didn't flee but hopped deliberately upward, pausing to look back as if beckoning. "Are you showing me the way?" Elijah whispered, deciding to follow. The hare led him to a narrow crevice hidden behind a boulder, a passageway he would have missed. Inside, rough-hewn steps ascended through the mountain's heart. Ancient handholds had been carved into the rock, worn smooth by countless hands over ages past. The passage emerged onto a windy plateau where the third and final stone marker stood alone, its face more elaborately carved than the others. Unlike the warnings below, this message read differently. "Only the companion may pass beyond, with the mountain's blessing." A sudden gust nearly knocked Elijah off his feet, as dark clouds materialized from nowhere, swirling around the summit. The gentle ascent suddenly seemed impossible as wind-driven sleet stung his face. "The mountain refuses you," called a voice behind him. Elijah turned to find one of Thornfeld's men, Silas the trapper, emerging from the passage. "The magistrate sent me to ensure your safety," Silas claimed unconvincingly, hand resting on his hunting knife. "This storm is unnatural. Return to the village, boy." "The trial is impossible," Silas finished. No shame in admitting defeat against the mountain itself. The storm intensified, lightning crackling between clouds directly overhead. Strangely, Elijah felt the amulet beneath his shirt growing warm against his chest. "I can't turn back," Elijah said. Silas's expression hardened. "Then I'll bring you down myself. The magistrate doesn't tolerate failure." As the man advanced, a massive shadow bounded from behind the stone marker, a silver-white blur that positioned itself between Elijah and the trapper. Kodiak's sudden appearance sent Silas stumbling backward in shock. "Impossible," he gasped. "The beast was secured at the merchant's camp." Kodiak growled, a sound like distant thunder. Silas retreated, disappearing down the passage. The great dog turned to Elijah, nudging him toward the summit with surprising gentleness. More remarkably, the storm seemed to part around them, creating a corridor of calm air. "You're helping me," Elijah realized, burying his fingers in the thick fur. "Just like in my dreams." Night fell over Mary's cottage as she tended to Elijah's wind-burned face with a salve of comfrey and honey. The glowing vial sat on the table between them, casting ethereal patterns across the weathered wood. "No ordinary boy returns from the forbidden peak," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "No ordinary dog breaks iron chains to guide him." Thaddeus claimed Kodiak was secured, Elijah recalled. "Yet he appeared exactly when I needed him." Mary nodded grimly. "The merchant knows more than he reveals." She hesitated, then reached beneath her bed, producing a small wooden chest Elijah had never seen. The lock clicked open with a key she wore around her neck. From within she withdrew a leather-bound book, its spine cracked with age, pages yellowed. "When I found you wandering the forest path, this was clutched in your small hands." Elijah stared at the book. "Why show me now, after all these years?" "Fear," she admitted. "The markings inside match those on your amulet, and now I see them again on the merchant's ledger." She opened the book carefully. Illustrations of massive guardian beasts filled the pages, alongside script in a language Elijah couldn't read yet. Somehow felt familiar. One drawing showed a silver-white creature standing beside a boy on a mountain peak. The resemblance to Kodiak was unmistakable. "This speaks of the mountain guardians," Mary explained, "creatures of ancient power bound to human companions, protectors of sacred places against those who would exploit them." Her finger traced a passage. "Every century, a guardian chooses a worthy companion. Together, they renew the covenant between mountains and men. You believe Kodiak is such a guardian, and I—" A sharp knock interrupted them. Thaddeus entered without waiting, his tall frame ducking beneath the doorway. His eyes immediately fixed on the open book. "So you've kept it safe all these years," he said to Mary. "I wondered where the companion's codex had gone." "You knew?" she demanded. "I suspected, from the moment I saw the boy." Thaddeus sat unbidden. 13 years ago, the last guardian and his companion were lost during a great avalanche. Their final act was saving a child, sending him down the mountain with their most precious possession. "Me," Elijah whispered. Thaddeus nodded. "I've spent these years raising Kodiak from a pup, searching for the lost child. The signs led me here." "Signs?" Mary pressed. "Unusual weather patterns, wildlife behaviors. The mountain has been restless, awaiting its new guardian pair." His expression grew grave. "But others have noticed too. The mountains conceal riches, minerals, timber, power. Without proper protection, exploitation follows." "Thornfeld," Elijah realized. "The men I overheard, they spoke of surveying the eastern slopes." "Mining concerns from the southern kingdoms," Thaddeus confirmed. "They care nothing for the balance that has protected these lands for generations." A low rumble of thunder punctuated his words, despite the clear night sky. "The mountain senses danger," Mary murmured. Thaddeus turned to Elijah. "The trials aren't mere tests of worthiness. They're preparations. Each strengthens the bond between guardian and companion, awakening dormant abilities in both." "What abilities?" Elijah asked. "That varies with each pairing. Some commanded the weather, others spoke with all living creatures. Still others could heal the land itself." Mary's eyes widened. "The animals that always helped him, bringing him items, warning of dangers." "The beginnings of his gift," Thaddeus agreed. "Untrained, unpredictable, but present." Outside, a commotion arose, shouting voices approaching the cottage. Through the window, lanterns bobbed in the darkness. "It seems Thornfeld has rallied support against you," Thaddeus observed calmly. "Fear is a powerful motivator, especially when stoked with lies." "What lies?" Elijah demanded. "That your actions threaten the village. That the mountain's anger will bring destruction. Old superstitions twisted to serve new greed." Mary closed the book hastily. "He must leave now." "No," Thaddeus countered. Fleeing only confirms guilt in their eyes. The second trial must proceed tomorrow as planned. The Echo Crystal awaits, but the caves beneath Old Widow's Ridge are a labyrinth. Mary protested. Even experienced miners avoid them, all the better to prove his worthiness. Thaddeus turned to Elijah. The crystal captures and returns sounds from the past. Finding it will reveal more of your history and destiny. The approaching crowd grew louder. Thornfeld's voice rose above others. The boy disrespects our tradition. The mountain's wrath will follow. Thaddeus stood. I'll redirect them. Use this time to study the Codex. Knowledge will be your shield tomorrow. At the door, he paused. Wear the amulet openly now. It's time people remembered the old ways. After he departed, Elijah examined the book's illustrations more carefully. One depicted a ceremony, a guardian and companion standing before a village, light emanating from both. The awakening, Mary read. When both acknowledged their bond fully, a sudden bark outside drew Elijah to the window. Kodiak sat in the garden, silver fur luminous under moonlight, watching the cottage with unwavering attention. He guards you already, Mary observed quietly. The bond forms whether Thornfeld wishes it or not. Elijah touched the amulet at his throat. Then I'll find the Echo Crystal tomorrow, no matter what stands in my way. Dawn painted Old Widow's Ridge in hues of amber and gold, the craggy formation resembling a hunched woman keeping eternal vigil over Elderwood. At its base, a narrow fissure opened like a toothless mouth, entrance to the caverns that honeycombed the mountain's heart. Elijah stood before this dark portal, the village gathered at a safe distance behind him. His amulet hung openly now, drawing curious whispers and sidelong glances. Thaddeus approached, carrying a small oil lamp. The Echo Crystal lies in the Chamber of Voices, the merchant explained, lighting the lamp. Follow the path that rings true. Trust your instincts, not your eyes. What does that mean? Elijah asked. The caves distort perception. Sounds become visions. Shadows speak half-truths. Thaddeus handed him the lamp. Many enter seeking treasure, then wander eternally, pursuing echoes of their own desires. From the crowd, Magistrate Thornfeld called out, "Convenient that no witnesses can accompany him. How will we verify he found this crystal rather than some common quartz?" "The Echo Crystal verifies itself," Thaddeus replied calmly. "Its properties are unmistakable." Thornfeld scoffed. "More mystical nonsense." He turned to the villagers. "While the boy plays at treasure hunting, I've finalized agreements bringing prosperity to Elderwood. The eastern mining operations begin next week. Jobs for every able body." A cheer rose from some villagers, though others exchanged uncertain glances. Elijah turned toward the cave, but Mary caught his arm. "Listen for what's beneath the echoes," she whispered. "The caves show what was and what might be, not always truthfully." The darkness swallowed him after a few steps, the temperature dropping noticeably. Water dripped somewhere ahead, each droplet creating overlapping echoes that seemed to come from all directions. The lamplight illuminated walls glittering with mineral deposits, casting prismatic reflections that danced like spectral figures. He descended carefully down a natural stairway of stone, following the most prominent path. Soon the entrance was no more than a distant pinprick of light. Strange acoustics carried whispers that gradually resolved into recognizable voices. Village council meetings, marketplace haggling, children's laughter. Disorienting, isn't it? Elijah spun toward the voice, nearly dropping his lamp. A tall figure stood nearby, Silas the trapper, Thornfeld's man. "The magistrate anticipated your success with the spring water," Silas said, producing a hunting knife. "He can't allow a second victory." Before Elijah could react, a silver blur shot from a side passage, knocking Silas backward. Kodiak materialized from the darkness, placing himself between Elijah and the trapper. "Impossible," Silas gasped. The merchant secured him with iron chains. Kodiak growled, the sound amplified and distorted by the cavern, until it seemed to come from a dozen massive beasts. Silas fled, his footsteps fading among the countless echoes. "You found me again," Elijah whispered, burying his fingers in Kodiak's thick fur. The dog nudged him deeper into the caverns, clearly intent on a specific path. The passages grew increasingly disorienting. The village square buzzed with agitated voices as Elderwood's residents gathered around the community hearthstone, an ancient granite monolith where for generations important decisions had been debated. Today, an invisible line divided those assembled. On one side stood Magistrate Thornfeld, with the merchants, traders, and those enticed by promises of mining prosperity. On the other, old Mary Thaddeus, and a smaller group concerned about the mountain's sanctity. "Two successful trials," muttered Blacksmith Gareth. "Perhaps the boy truly is chosen." "Chosen for what?" countered Miller Hewitt. "To keep us scratching meager livings from reluctant soil while wealth sleeps beneath our feet." In the center, Elder Tobin raised gnarled hands for silence. Decades as keeper of Elderwood's history had earned him respect from all factions. "Our traditions exist for reason," he began solemnly. "The mountain provides clean water, game, timber, protection from harsh winds. In return, we respect its boundaries." "Times change," Thornfeld interjected. "Our children leave for cities, seeking opportunities we cannot provide. The mining contracts would bring prosperity unknown in Elderwood's history." "At what cost?" challenged Mary. "The visions from the Echo Crystal showed devastation." "Convenient visions only the boy witnessed," Thornfeld scoffed. "Meanwhile, I offer tangible benefits, new roads, a proper school, medicine for all." Murmurs of approval rippled through his supporters. "And where is the boy now?" asked someone. "If he's our champion, let him speak." Elijah stood apart from both groups, watching from the shadow of the merchant's wagon, where Kodiak lay beside him. The dog's massive head rested against his leg, a warm, solid presence. "They're afraid," Elijah observed quietly. "Fear makes the familiar seem safer than the unknown." Kodiak's intelligent eyes met his, communicating understanding without words. Across the square, young Lily, the butcher's daughter, who had occasionally shown Elijah kindness, separated from her father's side and approached. She carried a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "For you," she said, offering it to Elijah. "My father doesn't know. He stands with Thornfeld." "But," she hesitated, glancing at Kodiak. "Last night I dreamed of snow and silver light protecting our village." Unwrapping the bundle revealed freshly baked bread and dried venison. "For your final trial," Lily explained. "Whatever it may be." From across the square, Butcher Tannard noticed his daughter's absence. "Lily," he called sharply, "get away from them." She retreated reluctantly. "Not everyone believes Thornfeld," she whispered, before rejoining her father, who yanked her roughly behind him. Thaddeus approached, observing the proceedings with detached interest. "The village mirrors what has happened throughout history. Those who protect tradition against those who pursue progress, each believing they serve the greater good." "And which serves the greater good here?" Elijah asked. "That," Thaddeus said, "is what the final trial will reveal." He gestured toward the hearthstone, where a concerning development unfolded. A thin crack had appeared in the ancient monolith, running from top to bottom like a lightning bolt frozen in stone. "The hearthstone splits," someone cried in alarm. Elder Tobin placed a weathered hand on the crack, face grave. "In all our histories, this has happened only twice, before the Great Flood and before the long winter. It warns of division that threatens our survival." Thornfeld dismissed this with a wave. "Natural weathering, nothing more. Stone cracks. That's hardly prophecy." "Our children see visions," Mary countered. "Our sacred stone splits. The mountain itself speaks. If you'd only listen." This triggered shouts from both sides, accusations flying like arrows. "The foundling brings misfortune." "Thornfeld sells our heritage for gold." Through the commotion, Elijah noticed several village children slipping away from their parents, gathering in whispered conversation behind the cooper's shop. Moments later, 10-year-old twins Finn and Fern approached him while adults remained distracted by the heated debate. "We believe you," Finn stated simply. "We've all had the dreams," added Fern. "Silver light and safety." "What dreams?" Elijah asked. Of the guardian, cherished several children who had joined the twins. Like in the old stories Grandma Wren tells, of great silver beasts who protected the mountains with their chosen companions, Elijah exchanged glances with Thaddeus, who nodded slightly. "The young often see truth more clearly than their elders," the merchant observed. Before Elijah could respond, Thornfeld's voice rose commandingly. "Enough superstition. Tomorrow I sign the final contract. Those who wish prosperity will find it. Those who prefer poverty with their traditions may keep them." He fixed Elijah with a cold stare. "Complete your third trial if you must, boy. But know this, by week's end, the eastern slopes will be under development regardless." As the crowd dispersed, the division was physically manifest. Neighbors who had shared harvests and hardships for decades now walked separate paths, exchanging suspicious glances. "The final trial," Elijah said quietly to Thaddeus. "What is it?" "The most dangerous," the merchant replied. "You must journey to the Forgotten Valley to retrieve the ancestor's locket, a medallion lost generations ago when the first companion fell, defending the mountain. And if I succeed," Thaddeus's expression grew solemn, "then the awakening can begin. But Thornfeld knows this too. Expect him to use every resource to prevent your return." Morning mist shrouded the trail to the Forgotten Valley as Elijah departed. Elderwood, the valley earned its name from a peculiar phenomenon. Those who entered often emerged with gaps in their memory, hours lost to some unexplained force. According to Mary, the ancients believed it existed partially in another realm, where time flowed differently, like walking through a dream while awake, she'd explained, pressing dried herbs into his hands. "Burn these if you become disoriented. The scent anchors you to this world." The path narrowed as he climbed, eventually disappearing beneath a carpet of silver-white flowers that bloomed nowhere else in the mountains. Their sweet fragrance carried a hint of something otherworldly. Each step released puffs of luminescent pollen that swirled in mesmerizing patterns before settling. After 2 hours' journey, Elijah reached the valley's entrance, a natural arch of weathered stone, symbols carved into its surface by forgotten hands. Beyond, the landscape shifted subtly. Colors seemed simultaneously more vivid and muted. Shadows fell at impossible angles, and distant features appeared both closer and further than they should. Stepping through the arch, Elijah immediately felt the difference. Air thick like honey, sounds muffled yet strangely resonant. His thoughts seemed to echo inside his skull. "The locket," he reminded himself aloud, the words hanging visibly before him like frost crystals before slowly dissolving. The valley floor stretched before him, dotted with standing stones and ancient twisted trees bearing silver leaves. No animal sounds broke the silence. Even the wind seemed hesitant to enter this place. Movement flickered at the edge of his vision, a figure walking among distant stones, then another, and another, shimmering, translucent forms of men and women dressed in unfamiliar garb, carrying tools or weapons from bygone eras. The failed seekers, trapped between moments. "Don't engage them," Thaddeus had warned. "They're echoes of those who came before, neither fully here nor gone." Their words are memories repeated endlessly. A spectral woman approached, her features disturbingly similar to Mary's. "Turn back, child," she beckoned. "The mountain's heart holds secrets best forgotten." Elijah averted his gaze, pressing forward. The pollen's effect grew stronger, reality wavering like heat above summer stones. Time stretched unpredictably. He would blink and find himself dozens of steps further along with no memory of the distance traveled. At the valley's center stood a ring of 7 stones surrounding a pool of water, so still it resembled polished obsidian. According to the Companion's Codex, the locket had been cast into this pool generations ago for safekeeping. As Elijah approached, the water's surface rippled without wind or touch. Images formed, not reflections but visions. His parents' faces clearer than he'd seen in the crystal cave. Then Mary, younger and afraid, finding him on the forest path. Kodiak as a silver pup, being raised by Thaddeus. Elderwood hummed with unfamiliar activity as Elijah approached. Men in dusty work clothes unloaded equipment from heavily laden wagons, while others hammered notices onto the village message board. Villagers gathered in nervous clusters, expressions ranging from hopeful to dismayed. Kodiak disappeared into the forest as they neared the first houses. Their connection remained, but the great dog seemed to understand the need for caution. Mary spotted him first, rushing forward to embrace him tightly. "Thank the mountain, you're safe." "Did you find the locket?" "Yes," Elijah confirmed quietly, touching the hidden object beneath his shirt. "What's happening?" Thornfeld's mining partners arrived at dawn, 3 days ahead of schedule. They claim surveying must begin immediately. Her voice lowered further. "The magistrate seems almost desperate to start before your trials conclude." Thaddeus approached, his normally impassive face tight with concern. "You've succeeded where many failed. The locket has accepted you." It wasn't a question. Elijah nodded. "What now?" "The awakening ceremony must happen tonight, beneath the full moon," the merchant explained. "With all 3 trial objects, the vial of moon mist water, the echo crystal shard, and the ancestor's locket, the ancient bond between guardian and companion can be formalized." A gruff voice interrupted them. "The prodigal foundling returns." Magistrate Thornfeld strode toward them, flanked by 2 sturdy men in mining company uniforms, just in time to witness progress coming to our little backwater. Elijah met his gaze steadily. "The mountain won't accept this intrusion." Thornfeld laughed. "The mountain is rock and dirt, boy. It accepts what men decide." He gestured expansively toward the equipment being unloaded. "By this time next year, Elderwood will have a proper school, paved roads, even a hospital." Several villagers nodded approvingly at these promises. Others looked uncertain, especially as they noted Elijah's safe return. The completion of a 3rd impossible trial. "Come," Mary urged, tugging Elijah toward her cottage. "You must rest before moonrise." Inside, the familiar scents of herbs and wood smoke provided momentary comfort. Mary busied herself preparing a meal while Elijah described the valley's strange properties and his connection with Kodiak. A knock at the door revealed Elder Tobin, his ancient face grave. "The boy succeeded?" he asked, without preamble. Mary nodded. "All 3 trials completed." "Then there is hope yet." Tobin settled his creaking bones on a bench. "I've studied our oldest records. The awakening ritual requires community witness. The village must choose sides in full awareness. Many already support Thornfeld." Elijah observed. "They see only immediate gain, not distant consequence." Tobin replied. "But seeing a true guardian and companion might awaken older memories, truths carried in blood, if not conscious thought." The conversation paused as neighbor Bess arrived with a covered basket. "Fresh bread for our champion," she announced, setting it on the table. "My Finn says you'll protect the mountain from the miners." She smiled uncertainly. "Children and their fancies, but still, we thought you might need strength for whatever comes next." After she departed, Mary uncovered the bread, a golden brown loaf still warm from the oven. She sliced it, releasing a wholesome aroma that reminded Elijah how long since he'd eaten properly. Sustenance before the ceremony, she encouraged, spreading fresh butter on a thick slice. Elijah ate gratefully, the simple flavors momentarily pushing aside weighty concerns. Halfway through his 2nd piece, A strange bitterness touched his tongue. His vision blurred suddenly, the room tilting at odd angles. "Mari," he managed, before his limbs grew impossibly heavy. Her face appeared above him, alarmed. "Elijah, what's wrong?" Elder Tobin sniffed the bread, his expression darkening. "Monkshood and blackroot, cleverly disguised by the bread's sweetness." "Poison," Mari whispered in horror. Together they half-carried, half-dragged Elijah to the bed as his consciousness flickered like a guttering candle. Through the window, Elijah glimpsed Bess speaking urgently with one of Thornfeld's men, receiving what appeared to be payment. "Betrayed," he gasped, as darkness crowded his vision. "Fight it," Mari urged, already gathering remedies from her stores. "The ceremony must happen tonight. Thornfeld knows this. It's why they moved everything forward, why they've poisoned you." Through their bond, Elijah sensed Kodiak's distress and approaching presence. Outside, a mournful howl shattered the evening quiet, sending villagers scurrying indoors. "The Guardian comes for his companion," Tobin observed. Mari worked frantically, mixing tinctures and poultices. "This will draw out the poison, but slowly, too slowly for the ceremony at moonrise." Thaddeus appeared in the doorway, assessing the situation with one glance. "The sacred water," he suggested urgently. "A few drops may strengthen him enough." Mari hesitated only briefly before retrieving the crystal vial of moon-mist water. Carefully, she placed 3 luminous drops on Elijah's tongue. The effect was immediate, a surge of cold energy spreading through his limbs, temporarily pushing back the poison's fog. His mind cleared enough to form one coherent thought. "Kodiak," he whispered, "bring him to me." "Impossible," Tobin protested. "The villagers are afraid enough, a massive beast prowling among the houses." "He's right," Thaddeus interrupted. "The Guardian's presence may accelerate the healing. Their bond strengthens both." Outside, Kodiak's howls grew more insistent, echoing off the mountains until it seemed a dozen guardian beasts called for justice. In the growing moonlight, his silver form paced just beyond the village boundary, visible to all who dared look. "Hurry," Elijah murmured as the water's effect began to fade, "or everything is lost." Moonlight streamed through Mari's cottage window as she battled for Elijah's life, applying poultices to draw out poison, while Tobin meticulously ground herbs with a mortar and pestle. Outside, Kodiak's howls had subsided to a persistent, low whine that seemed to vibrate through the village like a physical presence. "His breathing weakens," Mari whispered, fear edging her voice. Thaddeus examined the locket retrieved from the Forgotten Valley, his expression grave. The poison was calculated, strong enough to incapacitate through the night, ensuring the awakening couldn't occur at the crucial moment. "Can nothing more be done?" Tobin asked. "Perhaps," Thaddeus hesitated. "There are older remedies in the village archives, ancient knowledge preserved on stone tablets from when guardians and companions were common." Tobin shook his head. "The archives were sealed generations ago. Only the magistrate holds the key." "Then we must act without permission," Thaddeus stated flatly. "The mountain's future hangs in balance." A soft tap at the window startled them. Young Lily stood outside, finger pressed to her lips, in warning. Mari admitted her cautiously. "Father doesn't know I'm here," the girl whispered. "The miners are celebrating at Thornfeld's house. They've begun marking trees for clearing at dawn." She glanced at Elijah's still form. "Is it true? Is he really the companion from the old stories? What do you know of such tales?" Thaddeus asked gently. "Grandma Wren tells them about silver guardians who protected the mountain alongside chosen humans. She says her grandmother saw the last pair before the great avalanche." Lily's eyes shone. She also said the magistrate's private study contains books taken from the archives. Tobin and Mari exchanged meaningful glances. "Could you create a distraction?" Thaddeus asked the girl. "Something to draw attention while we access his study?" Lily nodded eagerly. "The children will help. We've all dreamed of the Silver Guardian." After she departed, the 3 conspirators moved quickly. Thaddeus remained with Elijah, while Mary and Torben made their way toward Thornfeld's imposing house, where light and raucous laughter spilled from windows. Their opportunity came moments later when children's voices raised in alarm from the village square. The hearthstone is glowing. Villagers and miners alike poured from Thornfeld's house to investigate. Using a healer's knowledge of lock mechanisms, Mary quickly gained entry to his private study, a room lined with books and curiosities, clearly borrowed from communal archives. "Here," Torben whispered, lifting stone tablets from a felt-lined case, "the prophecy of the final guardian." Together they hurried back to Mary's cottage, where Thaddeus examined their find with growing excitement. "It's all here," he confirmed. The full ritual, and his finger traced ancient inscriptions, the true purpose of the Guardian bloodline. The tablets revealed what generations had forgotten. The Guardians weren't merely protectors, but vital connections between mountain and humanity, living conduits, maintaining balance. The village square filled with villagers as word spread. Kodiak had entered Elderwood, and Elder Torben had called an emergency gathering. Lanterns illuminated concerned faces, while the glowing hearthstone cast ethereal blue shadows across the cobblestones. Thaddeus stood before his wagon, retrieving an ornate wooden box inlaid with silver. Inside lay a broad collar of intricately worked metal, not silver, but something brighter, with symbols matching those on Elijah's amulet and the ancestor's locket. "The Guardian's collar," he murmured, "forged from mountain steel by the first companions." Magistrate Thornfeld arrived with his mining partners, face flushed with anger and drink. "What nonsense is this? An impromptu meeting without official sanction." "Truth requires no sanction," Torben replied, his aged voice carrying surprising strength. He held aloft the stone tablets. "Our archives were incomplete, deliberately so. These tablets reveal what was hidden from us for generations." As Torben explained the true relationship between mountain and village, guardian and companion, the crowd's mood shifted. Miners exchanged uncomfortable glances, while villagers whispered among themselves, ancient stories suddenly relevant to present concern. "Superstitious drivel," Thornfeld interrupted. "Designed to halt progress and keep Elderwood impoverished, then explain the boy's success in the trials," challenged Blacksmith. Gareth. "Explain the Guardian's appearance, the glowing hearthstones." "Clever trickery," Thornfeld scoffed, though doubt tinged his voice. "The merchant is a known illusionist." From Mary's cottage, a procession emerged. Mary supporting Elijah's weakened form on one side, Kodiak steady against his other. The massive dog moved with deliberate dignity, his silver coat luminous against the night. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they approached. Elijah's face remained pallid from poison, but his eyes burned with determination. Around his neck hung the amulet, no longer hidden, matching the ancestor's locket clasped in his hand. "The awakening must occur tonight," Thaddeus announced, holding the Guardian's collar. During this celestial alignment, he gestured toward where the shepherd star now approached the mountain-crowned constellation. Without it, the bond between Guardian and companion remains incomplete, and the mountain's protection fails. "What protection?" demanded one of the mining officials. "We've surveyed extensively. There's nothing but trees and rock. Yet the water remains pure despite surrounding provinces suffering drought," Mary countered. "Game remains plentiful while neighboring forests empty. Our soil yields crops when others fail." Murmurs of agreement rose from older villagers, who remembered harsher times when only Elderwood remained prosperous. "The final trial," Thaddeus continued, "requires Elijah to place the Guardian's collar on Kodiak willingly, not through force or trickery, but through their bond." "A simple enough task," someone observed. "Not while poison still weakens him," Mary corrected, "and not with opposition actively working against them." All eyes turned to Thornfeld, who straightened defensively. "I've broken no laws. Offering progress isn't sabotage, but poisoned bread is," accused Lily boldly from among the children. "We saw Bess receive payment from your man after delivering it," Shocked mutters spread through the crowd. Bess shrank back, unable to meet neighbors' eyes. Thornfeld's face darkened. Wild accusations from impressionable children. He turned to his mining partners. We have contracts, signed and witnessed. Legal rights to begin operations at dawn. No contract supersedes the mountain's welfare, Tobin stated. Our ancestors understood this, even if we've forgotten. Thaddeus placed the Guardian's collar on the hearthstone. The ceremony begins. Elijah must summon Kodiak to accept the collar of his own will. The great dog separated from Elijah's side, moving to the village boundary where he sat regally, waiting. Despite their established bond, this final step required conscious choice from both. Guardian accepting the yoke of protection. Companion accepting lifelong responsibility. Call him, Thaddeus instructed Elijah. Not with voice alone, but with intention. Elijah stood unsteadily before the hearthstone, poison still clouding his mind. The distance to Kodiak seemed impossibly vast. How could his weakened call reach across such space? He'll fail, Thornfeld whispered loudly, and we can proceed with rational plans instead of mystical nonsense. Sensing a final opportunity, the magistrate gestured subtly to his men. Several moved to strategic positions around the square, ready to disrupt the ceremony. Above, the shepherd's star touched the edge of mountain crown, the celestial alignment beginning its brief window. The hearthstone's glow intensified in response, bathing the square in cold blue light. Elijah closed his eyes, reaching for the connection he'd felt in fleeting moments with Kodiak. The poison made concentration difficult, memories slipping away like water through fingers. Remember why you first called to him, Mary encouraged softly. What drew you to him before you knew any of this? Elijah thought back to that first moment in the square, seeing Kodiak beside the merchant's wagon. The instant recognition, the sense of something lost being found again. It wasn't knowledge of legends or desire for status that had prompted his cry then. It was belonging, recognition, home. With that understanding, Elijah opened not just his mind, but his heart, sending not a command, but an invitation across the square. A welcome, a recognition of shared purpose. The shepherd's star slipped halfway into Mountain Crown's embrace. Time was running short. Thornfeld signaled his men. Enough of this charade. Chaos erupted as Thornfeld's men moved to disrupt the ceremony. Two burly miners overturned lanterns, plunging sections of the square into darkness. Another shoved villagers aside, advancing toward the hearthstone where the Guardian's collar gleamed. Stop this madness, Thornfeld commanded. Can't you see you're being manipulated by superstition and a merchant's tricks? But before his men could reach Elijah, a wall of villagers formed. Blacksmith Gareth, butcher Tanard, and a dozen others standing firm. Let the boy finish, Gareth growled, muscular arms crossed. By whose authority? Demanded the mining company's representative. By Elderwood's, replied Tanard, surprising everyone given his previous support of Thornfeld. My Lily spoke truth. I saw coin pass to Bess myself, but didn't understand its purpose until now. From behind the protective line, Elijah continued his silent communion with Kodiak. Fighting through poison's fog, the great dog remained at the village boundary, watching intently, seemingly waiting for something more. Meanwhile, the twins Finn and Fern slipped away from the crowd, racing toward Thornfeld's house. They returned moments later, breathless, carrying a leather portfolio. The village charter, Finn announced, handing it to Elder Tobin, and mining contracts. How dare you enter my private office, Thornfeld sputtered. They didn't, Lily corrected. You left these on your study table during the celebration. Papers meant for everyone to see shouldn't be hidden. Tobin examined the documents by lantern light, his ancient face growing grave. These contracts grant rights far beyond what was discussed publicly. Not just the eastern slopes, but all mountain lands surrounding Elderwood, water rights, timber rights, even provisions to relocate the village if necessary. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. That can't be legal, protested Miller Hewitt, The charter established our communal ownership, which is why Thornfeld needed signatures from 3/4 of landholding families. Tobin explained, flipping pages. These documents contain signatures from people who left Elderwood years ago, and others, he squinted at the parchment, from those who never existed. The mining representative edged away from Thornfeld. You assured us these agreements were properly obtained. The village square fell silent as Kodiak stood before Elijah, their eyes locked in wordless communion. The great dog's breath clouded in the night air, somehow crystalline and sparkling with tiny points of light. Around them the circled villagers remained motionless. Sensing the gravity of the moment, Thaddeus approached with measured steps, carrying the guardian's collar. The ancient ritual requires 3 elements, he explained softly. The water that sustains, the crystal that remembers, and the locket that connects, each placed in its proper position. Mary took the vial of moon-mist water, moving to the northern point of the square, water from the highest source, touched by dawn's first light, symbol of the mountain's gift and purity. Tobin carried the echo crystal shard to the eastern position, memory of what was and what may yet be, symbol of wisdom passing through generations. Thaddeus himself placed the ancestor's locket at the southern point, bond of those who came before, unbroken through time, symbol of covenant renewed. The western position remained empty, Mary explained, representing the unknown future shaped by choices made tonight. As each artifact took its place, lines of blue light connected them, forming a triangle of power with the hearthstone at its center. There Elijah stood with Kodiak, holding the guardian's collar. Now comes the most crucial moment, Thaddeus warned. The collar must be placed by human hands, but accepted willingly by the guardian. This act seals their partnership for a lifetime. Above, the shepherd's star moved inexorably toward complete alignment with mountain crown. Minutes remained, perhaps less. Thornfeld, recovering from his earlier repulsion, made one final appeal. Think carefully, Elijah. This burden chains you to this remote village forever. With me you could have education, opportunity, wealth. For a moment, doubt flickered across Elijah's face, not because Thornfeld's offer tempted him, but because the magnitude of the commitment suddenly became real, a lifetime bound to Elderwood, to the mountain, to responsibilities he was only beginning to understand. You don't have to decide now, Thornfeld pressed. Wait a year, see more of the world before making such a choice. He's clever, Mary whispered to Thaddeus. Delay alone would achieve his purpose. An unexpected voice cut through the tension. Lily's father, Tanner. I once thought as Thornfeld does, progress, opportunity, wealth. Fine words masking simple greed. He looked around at his neighbors. But what we have can't be measured in coins. Clean water, healthy children, community. The mountain provides because generations honored the covenant. Other villagers nodded in growing agreement. Elijah squared his shoulders, certainty returning. I was orphaned by circumstance, but found family in Elderwood. The mountain has always been my true home. He raised the guardian's collar, addressing Kodiak directly. I offer partnership, not ownership, protection, not control. I understand this binds us both, to each other, to the mountain, to Elderwood. I accept this freely for all the days I'm granted. Kodiak's intelligent eyes seemed to evaluate Elijah's sincerity. Then, with deliberate movement, the massive creature lowered his head. As Elijah moved to place the collar, Thornfeld made a desperate lunge, knocking over a lantern. Flames spread quickly to nearby decorative garlands, hung for the harvest festival. Panic rippled through the crowd as fire leapt between buildings. Stop the boy, Thornfeld commanded his remaining loyal men. The alignment nearly ends. 3 miners rushed forward, but villagers intercepted them, grappling in the square while smoke thickened. A support beam from the meeting hall crashed down, narrowly missing the gathered children. Kodiak reacted instantly, abandoning the ceremony to bound toward the endangered youngsters. The great dog herded them away from danger with gentle but insistent nudges, prioritizing their safety over the ritual. Elijah understood immediately this was why Kodiak had waited. A true guardian protected people first, ritual second. The ceremony wasn't about mystical powers, but about commitment to service. From an inner pocket, Elijah withdrew a small carved wooden flute. Mary had given him years ago, saying it had been clutched in his other hand when she found him as a toddler. He'd never managed to produce more than discordant notes, but something compelled him to try now. Raising it to his lips, Elijah played a simple three-note melody that came to him without thought. The sound cut through chaos and flame, clear and compelling. Kodiak's head snapped toward him, eyes widening in recognition. The melody continued, somehow familiar to both, though Elijah had never consciously heard it. Ancient memory, encoded in blood and bone. The great dog returned to Elijah's side as villagers battled the spreading fire. Despite smoke and confusion, an island of calm surrounded them. The celestial alignment reached its apex. Shepherd's star fully embraced within mountain crown. Now, Thaddeus urged. While the stars aligned, Elijah raised the guardian's collar once more, continuing the melody between breaths. Kodiak bowed his massive head, a conscious choice, a willing acceptance. As the collar settled around the guardian's neck, both boy and beast froze momentarily. The metal seemed to flow like liquid, adjusting to fit perfectly before hardening again. Symbols etched upon its surface began to glow with the same blue-white light as the hearthstone. "It is done," whispered Thaddeus as the shepherd's star began its exit from Mountain Crown. The awakening began. The moment the guardian's collar settled around Kodiak's neck, a visible shockwave rippled outward from boy and beast. The blue light connecting the ritual artifacts intensified, creating a perfect triangle that seemed to exist in dimensions beyond ordinary sight. Within this triangle, Elijah and Kodiak stood motionless, enveloped in a column of radiance that stretched skyward toward the aligned stars. Villagers paused in their firefighting efforts, awestruck. Even Thornfeld's men lowered their weapons, unable to look away from the unfolding miracle. "The awakening," Mary breathed, recognition in her voice. Just as the ancient texts described. Within the light, extraordinary changes manifested. Kodiak's already impressive size seemed to increase, his silver-white fur developing an inner luminescence that rippled like moonlight on water. His eyes, previously remarkable, now contained depth that seemed to reflect entire mountain landscapes within their gaze. More dramatically, matching symbols appeared simultaneously on Kodiak's flank and Elijah's forearm, intricate patterns resembling stylized mountains with a spiral at the center. The Guardian's mark, materializing as if burned painlessly into flesh and fur, the physical manifestation of their bond. Thaddeus explained to the stunned onlookers. Neither can be harmed while the other lives. Their strengths become shared, their senses linked. The column of light expanded suddenly, extinguishing the nearby fires as if they were mere candle smoke, dissipated, replaced by air so pure it seemed to revitalize anyone who breathed it. Several villagers who had sustained minor burns or smoke inhalation found their discomfort vanishing, wounds visibly healing. Inside the light, Elijah experienced something extraordinary. His consciousness expanded beyond human limitations, temporarily merging with Kodiak's perceptions. He sensed the mountain as a living entity, its waterways flowing like blood vessels, its forests breathing, its stones vibrating with ancient memory. More astonishingly, he perceived thousands of invisible threads connecting all living things within the mountain's embrace, each strand humming with purpose and vitality. Simultaneously, Kodiak received the gift of human understanding, language, context, the complex emotional tapestry that defined human relationships. The great dog comprehended Elijah's past struggles and hopes with perfect clarity, just as Elijah now understood Kodiak's lineage and purpose. Dawn broke over Elderwood, illuminating a village transformed. The night's events had left physical changes, scorched buildings partially repaired by villagers working through the night, the hearthstone now permanently suffused with a subtle blue luminescence, and most notably the presence of Kodiak moving freely among the cottages, with Elijah at his side. But deeper transformations had occurred in the villagers themselves. Neighbors who had argued bitterly over Thornfeld's mining proposals now worked together, united by the undeniable wonder they had witnessed. Children approached Kodiak without fear, instinctively understanding his protective nature. In the village square, Elder Tobin presided over an emergency council. The magistrate's seal, symbol of authority for generations, lay broken on the table before him, its corruption made manifest when Kodiak's revealing hue had caused hairline fractures to appear throughout the once solid silver. The law is clear, Tobin explained to the gathered villagers. When a magistrate is found corrupted, leadership falls to the Council of Elders until a proper selection can occur. Thornfeld, relegated to the crowd's edge and stripped of authority, seethed visibly. This changes nothing, he insisted to his remaining supporters. The mining contracts were legally binding regardless of who signed them. The mining company representative, a pragmatic man named Hadley, shook his head. Our legal position is compromised by the evidence of fraud. More importantly, he gestured toward where Kodiak and Elijah stood. There are considerations beyond typical business risks. Throughout the morning, Thornfeld had watched his coalition of supporters steadily erode. Even his most loyal men had been shaken by the awakening ceremony and its aftermath. Several had already departed for neighboring towns, unwilling to stand against what they now perceived as powers beyond human reckoning. As the council meeting progressed, a disturbance at the village boundary drew attention. A convoy of wagons approached, reinforcements. Thornfeld had secretly summoned days earlier, heavy equipment and armed men meant to begin operations immediately after the contracts were finalized. Perfect timing, Thornfeld muttered, straightening his jacket and moving toward the incoming wagons. Now we'll see how magical lights stand against determined men. The convoy's leader, a hard-faced foreman named Blackwood, consulted briefly with Thornfeld before addressing the villagers. We have orders and contracts authorizing immediate commencement of operation. Anyone interfering will be removed. Those contracts are disputed, Tobin replied calmly. Pending investigation of fraud, Blackwood shrugged dismissively. Not my concern. We have quotas to meet and schedules to keep. He gestured, and his men began unloading equipment. Elijah stepped forward, Kodiak at his side. The mountain is protected, he stated simply. No mining will occur on these slopes. A ripple of nervous laughter passed through Blackwood's crew. And who's going to stop us? You and your pet. We will, came Gareth's deep voice as the blacksmith moved to stand beside Elijah. Other villagers joined him. Mary, Tannard, even Miller Hewitt, who had initially supported the mining. Blackwood assessed the situation with cold calculation. We outnumber you. We're better armed, and we have legal authorization, regardless of your local political squabbles. Thornfeld stepped to his side, confidence returning. The boy played his game and put on his light show. Now reality reasserts itself. What happened next occurred with such speed that many would later disagree about the exact sequence. Blackwood signaled his men forward. Someone, perhaps Thornfeld himself, gave a more specific command. A worker raised a pickaxe, not toward any person but toward the ancient hearthstone, symbol of Elderwood's covenant with the mountain. Before the pickaxe could fall, Kodiak moved, one moment beside Elijah, the next a silver blur, racing across the square. He made no sound, showed no teeth, yet the sheer presence of the guardian caused Blackwood's men to scatter instinctively. Only the foreman held his ground, hand moving to the weapon at his belt. Stop, Elijah commanded, but not to Kodiak. His voice carried strange harmonics that seemed to resonate from the mountain itself. "This is your only warning," Blackwood sneered, drawing his pistol. "Warnings work both ways, boy." Before he could take aim, the ground beneath the entire convoy shuddered. Not a violent earthquake, but a focused tremor, affecting only the area occupied by the mining equipment and wagons. Equipment shifted, wagons tilted precariously, men struggled to maintain their footing. "What trickery is this?" Thornfeld demanded, though fear had replaced confidence in his voice. "No trick," Elijah answered quietly. "The mountain responds to its guardians. This is merely a demonstration." Kodiak stood before the convoy, silver fur rippling with internal light, the guardian's mark on his flank glowing visibly, even in daylight. His eyes fixed on Blackwood, with ancient, patient wisdom, not anger, but absolute resolution. The foreman's hand wavered, pistol half raised. Something in Kodiak's gaze, perhaps the weight of centuries or the inexorable power of nature itself, penetrated his professional detachment. Slowly he lowered his weapon. "We were told this would be a routine operation," he said carefully. "Nothing in our briefing mentioned whatever this is." Elijah approached, the guardian's mark on his arm pulsing in rhythm with Kodiak's. "The mountain has chosen its protectors. No harm will come to your men if they depart peacefully, but no mining will occur on these slopes." Blackwood holstered his pistol, making a quick calculation. "I need to consult with headquarters." "A reasonable decision," Elder Tobin affirmed from nearby. As the convoy prepared to withdraw temporarily, Thornfeld made one final desperate attempt. "This changes nothing legally. You'll return with more men, proper authorization." "No, Hadley," the mining company representative interrupted firmly. "We'll be terminating all contracts related to Elderwood." He glanced meaningfully at Kodiak. "Some risks aren't worth taking, regardless of potential profit." The tremor subsided as the convoy began its retreat, leaving Thornfeld standing alone, his carefully constructed authority and plans lying in ruins around him. "This isn't over," he promised darkly, but his words carried no weight as Kodiak's steady gaze remained upon him, seeing through every layer of pretense to the truth beneath. A week after the confrontation, Elderwood pulsed with renewed purpose. Villagers worked together repairing fire damage, but their labor extended beyond mere restoration. Under Elijah and Kodiak's guidance, they began reinforcing their relationship with the mountain through practical actions and symbolic gestures. On the village's eastern boundary, Elijah directed the placement of new stone markers, not warnings, but designations of protected areas where wildlife could flourish undisturbed. Kodiak moved ahead of the workers, somehow communicating the boundaries that felt right, respecting the mountain's natural rhythms. "The Guardian can sense where human presence disrupts and where it harmonizes," Thaddeus explained to curious onlookers. "These boundaries aren't barriers, but reminders of balance." Blacksmith Gareth and his apprentices forged metal plates bearing the Guardian's mark, the same symbol that adorned Elijah's forearm and Kodiak's flank. These were mounted at springs, forest clearings, and other places of natural significance. When placed properly, Elijah instructed, these strengthen the mountain's natural energies. Water flowing past them will carry subtle healing properties. Plants growing nearby will provide better nourishment. Most villagers accepted these changes with growing enthusiasm, finding that crops planted according to Elijah's guidance grew more vigorously, well water tasted sweeter, and forest paths seemed less treacherous. Even skeptics couldn't deny the tangible improvements in daily life. Inside Mary's cottage, now expanded to accommodate both healers, Elijah studied the companion's codex intently. The text that had once seemed impenetrable now revealed its wisdom clearly, his enhanced perception allowing him to read between the written lines. "The mountain breathes in cycles," he explained to Mary. 7 years of abundance followed by 1 year of rest. Previous generations understood this rhythm and planned accordingly. Mary nodded thoughtfully. "That explains the old storage cellars beneath the Elder Hall. They're sized for preserving 1/7 of each harvest."